This lecture will be about the capital cities. The capital is a backbone element of the political and territorial organization of a modern state. It is the seat of government, the center for managing the sovereign state, as well as the vital element shaping, reproducing, and transforming its statehood, and primarily impacting on the administrative division, the system of center-region relations, and the state's regional policy. Capital city plays a number of roles in a country. First, the capital mainly functions as a symbol of a state and a collective image of the nation. This is symbolic function. From this perspective, capitalness is an outgrowth of the nation-state's myth-making. It shapes the nation's vision of itself and the world around. The symbolic function is paramount as the population can regard a city as the capital even if it doesn't have the relevant status. It does not perform the other functions of the capital. Second, the capital is the seat of government. This is institutional function, which ensures the integrity and coherence of state administration. This function is deeply rooted in history. It goes back to the times when statehood was closely associated with the crown and the treasury, and the control center followed them in the case of relocation. In the meantime, this function loses its relevance in the modern world, given the rapid flows of people and information. The capital is the center of production and distribution of public goods and the location offering the best opportunity to influence politics. The capital creates the center-periphery dichotomy. It contrasts itself with the rest of the country, which results in inter-regional differentiation of the state, the regional function. This process sets and maintains internal mental boundaries between the center and regions. It allows identifying territories in need of support to secure compliance with national standards and thus preserve statehood. The center's emphasis on economically and culturally weaker regions unites the remaining regions by creating a myth which shows the greatness of national ideals and the danger of evading them. You can offer here that a center has several capitals. The sentence implies that the seat of different branches of government are located in several cities. This phenomenon is referred to as multiple capitals, as the functions of the capital are distributed among several cities. As you can see on the world's modern political map, there are countries with 2, Germany, or 3 capitals, South Africa. Multiple capitals can be categorized in the following way. Administrative capitals are home to separate branches of government, like the judicial center of Russia is in St. Petersburg. Monarchical capitals are home to the king's residence, while the state authorities are located elsewhere, Amsterdam in the Netherlands. It is also possible that the former royal residence still functions as the symbolic capital of a now republican state, Cetinje in Montenegro. Symbolic capitals retain the metropolitan status while the state authorities move to another city, Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. Diplomatic capitals are home to diplomatic missions of the states that do not recognize the official capital of a country, like Tel Aviv in Israel. Temporary capitals execute the capital's function on the temporary basis, like in wartime. For instance, Kaunas was the temporary capital during the Polish occupation of Vilnius, and Bonn was the provisional capital in Germany. Summer capitals are cities regularly used as administrative capitals in summertime, like it was in the Philippines and British India. Wandering capitals move together with the head of state or the treasury, like centers of the early Holy Roman Empire or Ethiopian capitals in the 15th to 17th centuries. There is hardly find a city in the world which does not see itself as the main city in some way. In most cases, however, there are quasi-capitals, with the term capital being used metaphorically. Such cities do not inspire to run a sovereign state. Instead, they capitalize on the symbolism of the concept capitalness to preserve their own identity and sometimes to attract tourists. Here are the main types of quasi-capitals. Historical quasi-capitals are former capitals. Hierarchical capitals are cities which rank their position in the country. Supranational capitals are centers of the country's macro-region. The use of such images at the macro-regional level, including the capital of the world, the capital of Europe, and others, can also be placed in this category. Regional capitals are administrative centers of the second, third, and lower orders, which do not seek a sovereign status. Industrial capitals are cities that stand out in some industry, and fictional capitals are centers of fictional states. We can group capital cities into 4 clusters. The macro capital of the monocentric state, a classical model of old and imperial capital cities inherited by most countries. This is the case of capital city in Great Britain, France. In these countries, there is a need for centralization or re-centralization, as was with Italy in times of the Risorgimento. The task is accomplished by the creation of an unified center in which all power is centered. Second, the macro capital of the polycentric state, a type historically related to the states established through the integration of independent units like Germany or Spain. This made it necessary to check the centrifugal pressures, given that each center of the country has its own strong political class. Keeping a balance between the leading centers, including the capital, poses a challenge to such a system. Third, the micro-capital of the polycentric state, exemplified by Canberra in Australia, Islamabad in Pakistan, Washington in the US, Abuja in Nigeria, and Ottawa in Canada. As such countries are usually confronted by great centrifugal forces, the choice of a macro capital enables one to lessen the influence of the political class, thus finding a compromise between the country's major centers. And 4, the micro capital of the monocentric state, a rare thing on the world political map today. We may see such type in Dodoma, Tanzania, or Wellington, New Zealand. Each country has one major macro center, with the capital city, like the other cities, that falls behind in terms of its population size. In such countries, the capital city neutralizes the risk of over-centralization. The phenomenon of microcapital, the country's leading political city, which falls behind other cities economically and culturally, is rooted in the English tradition. The way in which London has become to be organized in spatial political terms is special in that its historical center, the city, enjoys broad autonomy and is administered by the City of London Corporation. Government departments have always been located beyond the historical center's borders. First in Tower, right on the border with the central city of London, and then in the neighboring city of Westminster. As a result, Greater London saw the development of 2 centers, one for metropolitan and national commerce within the city's borders, and the other for the nation court and government in Westminster. This is where the idea of the possible spatial separation of power and money and the purely political role of the capital comes from. The Anglo-Saxons put it into practice in all settlements of colonists in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. While discussing a future territorial system of the US, the Founding Fathers pointed out that the seeds of democracy could not grow in old European capitals due to, among others, the fusion of power and capital. It was thus decided to spatially separate them so that the created micro-capital would never become the macro-center. Looking for the site for the future capital, the Founding Fathers chose the piece of land far away from the ocean and surrounded by the agricultural states of the South. Following the Civil War only, Washington became the spatial embodiment of national unity and reunification of the North and South. We may identify 5 relocation strategies dominating the contemporary world. First, the strategy of historical integration, implying that states move the capital city back to the historical sacrificed centers. Second, the strategy of spatial compromise, suggesting that stringently divided countries search for neutral locations to move the ruling centers, there to potentially integrate the parties involved. Third, the strategy of regional rebalancing adopted by the countries with a high degree of internal territorial disparity. In this context, the decision to move capital cities to less developed regions is expected to spur regional development. The strategy of repositioning pursued by those who want to reshape their identity, present their new image to the world, and change the development paradigm. 5. The strategy of centralization followed by those who find it important to promote greater social cohesion and consolidate the ruling class. Here on the table you can see the last examples of state capital relocations. There exist the following models of capital territory management. First, the capital territory is the center of the state's region. In this case, the capital is both the center of the state and the center of one of its regions. Second, the capital territory is part of the state's region. In this context, the capital, the center of the state, does not coincide with the center of the region where it is situated. Third, the capital territory is a city under the direct administration. Looked at this slide, the city which functions as the capital becomes an independent region. Next, the capital territory is a federal territory. This view sees the capital as a part of territory with a lower status directly controlled by the federal center. Sometimes, positioning of a capital city plays a significant role in state political system. Thus, in Canada, some governmental agencies are headquartered in the official capital of Ottawa, part of the province of Ontario, and others lie on the north bank of the river, next to the Hull district of Gatineau, part of the Quebec province, that saves the unity of the country. I hope all the knowledge now ensured you that we can learn a lot of the state politics looking at its capital city.